The empath and depression. Not all empaths experience depression, but it's a recurring theme, a common thread amongst most empaths and HSPs and neurodivergents. And I want to break down some of the reasons why we feel depressed, but also some ways to maybe combat it or minimize the impact. And I want to begin with this. One of the main reasons why we are depressed is because of the guilt associated with being depressed. And so what do people do when they feel down, they feel depressed, they feel sad? We hide it. We mask it, and that unto itself is exhausting, and it prevents connecting with other people who are in the same emotional mindset. And so we go out there, we wear a mask, we pretend, and we lack connection. And one of the things that has empowered me in navigating, embracing, managing my depression, I've experienced depression throughout my entire life. It's up and down, it comes and goes. But one of the things that I learned to do to really minimize the impact of depression is to simply embrace it and stop feeling guilty and stop feeling shame about those days when the clouds are dark and they're heavy and it's raining and I feel cold and lonely and isolated. I've just simply learned to embrace it. And that unto itself has relieved the burden of being depressed. Here's another thing to think about when navigating your depression, if you experience depression or sadness. Chronic sadness. We can package it, we can frame it in different ways. Another reason why the empath or an HSP or another neurodivergent might experience sadness or depression is because we feel misunderstood. Humans, we are sentient beings, we are communal beings. We need a sense of belonging. We need a sense of community. We need a sense of, hey, do you see me? Do you value me? Do you appreciate me? And as neurodivergents, we're a part of this sort of unique, isolated demographic. And within the category of neurodivergence are different categories unto themselves. And so we live in this sense of continual alienation, which leads to isolation, which leads to loneliness. You take the happiest person on the planet and you put them in an environment where they feel unwelcomed, misunderstood, a lack of belonging, a lack of value. You put anybody in that type of environment and you will see them experience a sense of emotional calcification. And any form of emotional disconnect prolonged over time will look, feel, sound like depression. Maybe it's not depression in the clinical sense, that it's a lack of certain hormones being developed in the brain, and therefore it's a chemical imbalance, they say. We also have to take into consideration, is it mental illness or is it emotional deprivation? Am I lacking emotionally? And as a result, it looks like depression. And so again, the way that I've learned to minimize the impact of my depression is to simply embrace it. Today, I'm having a dark day. I feel very sad, I feel very lonely, I feel disconnected. Some of my childhood wounds have been triggered. I feel a lack of value. My esteem is somewhat anemic today. And I've learned to simply tell myself, you know what, Vital? It's okay. Be those things. Void of shame, void of guilt. Own them. And that unto itself gives me a sense of empowerment. And so the best thing you can do for yourself is to really dive deep into who you are. Who are you? What are your needs? What are your emotional needs? What are your physical needs? What are your environmental needs? And start focusing on, what do I need to bring into my life to minimize the pain of isolation, of loneliness? For me, my dogs. My dogs fill the void and they bring me so much joy and so much pleasure. I've almost reached a point where I'd rather not interact with humans because I get so much pleasure and connection. Connection. It always goes back to connection. As sentient beings, we need a sense of connection. I get so much sense of connection with my dogs that it minimizes the impact of feeling misunderstood, isolated, and lonely. Learn about yourself. Who are you? What do you need? And then come up with a plan. How do I obtain those things to make me feel whole?